SHW. This is our wrestling.
This is insane what we're seeing right now.
We're going out tonight. It's been a long, long time. Make sure it looks just right. It's going down.
Heads up, here comes the spread. All hail the queen.
Another spear, will it be enough?
No, not this
like
way.
this, not like
Come
this,
on.
no.
This is just bedlam right now.
Hey, what is going on here?
Let's start this party, then I'll feel alright.
You've got to be kidding me.
Holy cow.
And now, the voices of SHW, Brandon Benefield, Gerard Bonner, and Diana Michelle.
Just want to go on record that here at Southern Arm Wrestling is real.
If you want a piece of Scott Hall, I'm easy to find. I'm 6'6", I'm nearly 300 pounds. You can't miss me when you walk in the building.
Hey, yo, you know who I am.
Say hello to Razor Ramon.
It's survey time, but you don't know why I'm here. Hey, yo. Survey says, one more for the good guys. Hard work pays off. Dreams come true. Bad times don't last, but bad guys do.
Hey, yo. What's going on? It's Friday. It's that time of the week. Time for your favorite podcast. It's SHW. This is our wrestling. I'm B-Double Brandon Benefield, alongside GB Gerard Bonner and the always lovely Diana Michelle. And as you just saw at the beginning of our episode here, it's been a bit of a tough week in the world of professional wrestling as we lost an absolute legend, a pioneer, a trailblazer in the world of pro wrestling, and a guy who had quite a few connections with SHW. I'm talking about Razor Ramon, talking about Scott Hall, talking about the bad guy. So guys, I know it's been a tough week. We've all been kind of talking throughout the week, and you've seen posts just all over the place on social media with tributes to the bad guy. How are we feeling?
Sad, actually. I mean, when they came over to WCW and took over, him and Kevin Nash, it was like made me so mad because I was, don't mess up my thing, man. Don't mess with it. But you know, when he came in, he's like, you know who I am. You don't know why I'm here. It kind of gave me chills, you know. It's like what's going on? Yeah. And then that whole just outsider and NWO started, and it changed the world of wrestling as I knew it. And whether I liked it or not, at the time, I didn't know if I was going to like it, but I grew to love it. But yeah, what a mark on history he made when he came over that way. And of course, before that, when he was Razor Ramon and just doing his greasy looking, you know, whatever, that was something. But I think that the real mark on history was starting the NWO thing. And it's just wild to think that he's gone, you know.
Yeah, I've been thinking about what I'm going to say about this. I mean, I've said some stuff on the socials already. I don't want to repeat all of it, but I don't know that we fully understood the impact of Scott Hall.
Right.
I had the pleasure of first seeing Scott Hall back in his AWA days when he was known as Big Scott Hall. And he was part of a tag team with Kurt Hennig. We all know him as Mr. Perfect. And back then, he had this whole Magnum PI, Tom Selleck look happening with the hair and the thick mustache. And he was this massive. Amazing. Oh, man, he was massive. And what I don't think people understand about that is at the time, I mean, in the AWA, he was at like year 2 of his wrestling career. He started down in Florida with Dusty Rhodes and Championship Wrestling from Florida. But the AWA time for him, and most people don't understand this, back in 85, 86, Vern Gagne from the AWA had just lost Hulk Hogan, just lost him to WWE. And at that point, that had kind of really revolutionized what wrestling was looking like. We all know what Vince was doing. And the AWA at that time had a bunch of guys who looked like common people that you'd find at the bar, you know, the Bruiser and the Crusher and these guys. And so he brought Scott Hall in to kind of be the second coming of Hulk Hogan. Hogan was Hogan in the AWA before he came to WWE. And Scott Hall was going to somewhat be the second coming of that. And he had a great career there. But I think Scott Hall realized, the AWA is not going to be around much longer. So by 89, he leaves, goes to WCW, had a tough time in WCW, and that wasn't fully his fault. Of course, he comes to WWE, and that's where things start to change. Razor Ramon, we hadn't seen anything like that in WWE. And again, here he is being a game changer as WWE's trying to change their image from the Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant, Big John Studd type of thing to creating their new generation. And at this point, you've got Scott Hall as Razor Ramon, which is something unlike WWE had ever seen. This is the first guy who is the bad guy that we really like. We're not supposed to like him at all, but he's too cool not to like, you know? And so if you don't have Scott Hall as Razor Ramon, we don't get all of the cool anti-heroes that then define the 90s and wrestling as we know it. You know, he wins the Intercontinental Championship, does all that stuff. And I will say this, and I have been saying this on the socials all week long. I think Scott Hall's the single most influential wrestler of the last 30 years. And I could make a case for forever. And I know some people want to crucify me and say, you're just being in the moment. But I don't think we realize just how significant he was. I mean, even if we go before him going to WCW, which was massive, right? The introduction of the ladder match to WrestleMania was because of Scott Hall and Shawn Michaels. And while all of the highlight reels show the things that Shawn did, people forget Razor won that match. And on a WrestleMania that was headlined by 2 WWE title matches and 2 matches from Bret Hart, everybody's still talking about Shawn Michaels and Razor in the ladder match. So if that doesn't happen, we don't get TLC, we don't get Money in the Bank, we don't get all of this crazy stuff that happens with ladder matches. That's Scott Hall. Yeah. That's Scott Hall. And then you get to the curtain call and his decision to leave WWE, which at that time was a massive decision, you know? And so a few things. One, if he doesn't do that, wrestlers don't get guaranteed contracts. So he changed the business for wrestlers. He changed the business for us as fans. You know, if the curtain call doesn't happen, Triple H is supposed to win the King of the Ring that year. If Triple H wins the King of the Ring in 96, we don't get Stone Cold. If we don't get Stone Cold and he doesn't go to WCW, we don't have the Attitude Era. We don't have DX. We don't have NWO. We don't have the biggest era that people love right now.
Yeah, man.
Because of him. It's mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing.
Yeah.
And
you did a great job earlier in the week when you posted that on social media. And I was just like, because you laid it out perfectly, just like you're doing right now, where it's just like you stop and think about all the different threads that piece together, you know, the 90s into the 2000s and shaped pro wrestling today.
On him.
That's
all
crazy.
rested on him. And what's funny is he doesn't get that credit because people think about Stone Cold, they think about The Rock, think about Goldberg, think about Sting, all that. But he's the move that put all of those things in motion, you know? And I don't
think he gets near as much credit as he is. Like, people don't even think about it.
People were ready to argue with me when I first made this assertion, and then they went, "Oh wait, oh wait,
Yeah.
So if you let me take it further, his impact is still being felt today. Think about this: if we don't have the NWO, we don't get Too Sweet. If we don't get Too Sweet, we don't get the Bullet Club.
That's
If
right.
we don't get the Bullet Club, we don't get the Elite. And if we don't get the Elite, we don't get All Elite Wrestling.
How about it?
And I'll go even further.
Crazy.
Without Scott Hall, there's no SHW. Scott Hall, when he comes to spend time with DDP, that gets the attention of a Dylan Freiermeyer in Pittsburgh, who decides to come down to Atlanta. These two become fast friends. Now, all of a sudden, you've got Scott Hall listening to the fantasy booking of Dylan Freiermeyer, who at that time isn't running a promotion, is just happy to meet his favorite wrestler. And now, all of a sudden, Scott is tweeting these things, giving Dylan the confidence to start his own promotion and become Booker of the Year. We become Promotion of the Year. The three of us are here. That doesn't happen without Scott Hall.
It's insane.
It is insane.
How many things connect, all
It's
because
insane.
of Scott Hall, man. That's incredible. And it's also like, if you think about, like you mentioned the 80s, his AWA days. It's almost like all these different phases of his career are so different.
Yes.
That it's crazy that it's all the same guy,
Right.
So like I put together, and I know it's not a Dylan edit, so it's not the most fancy video in the world, but just that little bit at the beginning of this show, a little tribute there at the beginning. But I found that one clip where he's got the mustache and he's 300
big hair
pounds.
Right.
Yeah, and it's like, that's the same guy.
Same guy.
It's hard to believe that all these different phases of his career, but gosh, I tell you what, one of the coolest things ever, and this was our third show ever. So Southern Honor Wrestling went. This is when we still named the show, so I don't want to get it wrong. Was it Winter Rising or Winter is Coming, or I'll get it wrong. But anyways, it was our third show.
These days we call it SHW3.
Right. It was some our fans that are watching this are going, it's this, you idiot,
right.
it's this.
Right.
So we started in October of 18, and this was December of 18, where Sunny Days was going to be in a tables match with Kevin Ryan for the SHW title. Many of you will recall that you mentioned a ladder match earlier. This was not a ladder match. However, a ladder got involved, and one Sunny Days fell from the ladder, head first through a table, busting his head wide open, which was not supposed to happen. So I'm calling the match. Now, back in those days, GB, our commentary booth was back behind the crowd, like off to the side of the stage. So it was kind of hard to see back there, but we were kind of up on a platform a little bit. But I couldn't really tell how bad it was when it happened. So we're just calling the end of the show. It was like, that was the end of the show. So that got over. Then I'm realizing, the X went up and people are coming out and tending to Sunny Days. And man, this is serious. What's going on here? And so I'm a little worried about that. And he gets taken backstage. Next thing I know, I'm hearing a buzz from the crowd going, "Hey, Scott Hall's over there." And so I'm like, wait, what? And sure enough, Scott Hall had come out, where the entrance to the backstage area is, and there's those black curtains. Well, he had come out and was sitting kind of right around there, watching kind of behind the crowd and watching from a distance just to watch the show. I had no idea it was there until after the show. Right. And by the way, Sunny Days ended up being okay. It was a serious injury at the time.
Very serious.
Ended up being okay.
It's on the documentary too.
Yeah, it's in the documentary.
Yeah. What was it he said? Did it look good?
Yeah, so
right.
Dylan goes, did it at least look good? Yeah. But also the clip I used at the beginning of the show here was from that time where Scott was backstage as Sunny Days was brought back there, and Scott goes, "Southern Honor Wrestling, it's real." At that time, that was very real when that happened. But yeah, so people are kind of like figuring out that Scott's over there and trying to go over and get pictures with him. And I'm still in that phase where I'm like, I don't know. Do I want to go over and bother him for a picture? And I kind of
Man,
was
I'm
talking
telling you, we got to
Well,
bother people.
I know. But at the time I was kind of like talking myself out of it. Right. And then I'm like, like there's other people doing it. Like, what's it going to hurt? Let me just run over there, grab a quick picture. And if you guys remember Pat was, before Diana took over, Pat was our lovely ring announcer. Not quite as lovely as
I will
Diana.
make sure he knows you said so.
I was about
yeah.
to say he would love to hear that you called him lovely.
I think Pat watches. He'll probably hear it. Shout out to Pat. Anyways,
Yes.
Great
Pat was
guy.
over there, and of course, Pat knows Scott as well because Pat worked at DDPY, and
Right.
a lot of the DDPY folks knew Scott from coming up there. And so Pat was over there, and I said, Pat, you mind taking my picture real quick? So yeah, so we get a picture. Now, what I didn't realize until after the fact was Pat took the full length body shot, right? So he stepped back, took the wide shot, and so I go to look at the picture after the fact, and Scott's doing the tippy toe trick, right? And you can clearly see it in the picture because you can see our feet. And the thing is, he's already 6 inches taller than me. Like, was it necessary to do the tippy toes? So he looks huge in the picture next to me. Like, and I'm not a small guy, but in that picture, I look tiny. And what's even more funny to me is that, I don't know, a little while later, I'm just flipping around the WWE network. There's a show on there called WWE Photo Shoot, where if you're not familiar, they'll have one of the former wrestler or a current wrestler on there, and they'll just go through. It's like a 20-minute, 30-minute episode, going through old pictures, and then they tell stories about whatever picture you're looking at. Well, there's one with Scott Hall, and I happened to come across it, and they show him a picture of him standing next to Kurt Hennig, and in the picture, Kurt Hennig is on his tippy toes, and so Scott immediately starts laughing. He's like, Kurt, he's too much. He's on his tippy toes. He's like, one thing I learned from Kurt was that to look bigger in pictures, you got to stand on your tiptoes. And I immediately remembered back to the picture I got with him, and I'm like, oh, he's doing the tiptoe trick.
Hilarious.
I so wish I would have seen that beforehand. I would have been standing on my tippy toes as well.
Now you know.
But now I know. So anyways, but that was just one of a few times. He may have come a couple other times to SHW. Just kind of, and what was cool was that he wasn't there to make an appearance to try to steal any spotlight. He just wanted to come watch the show, and so he'd come hang out backstage and just, like I said, kind of from the side, just watching from behind the crowd. And so many people got a chance to interact with him and meet him and stuff like that. That it's amazing how many people have stories, especially this week, just all through social media, reading so many people's interactions with him. And then, and of course, as we know, his connections with DDPY or DDP and DDPY and the guys that work there, which are a handful of guys that work for SHW. And so a lot of them, man, my heart goes out to those guys because, yeah, we all lost like a wrestling hero that we look at as just a legend in the wrestling business. But, you know, those guys are losing like a close friend that they, you know, traveled with and lived with at the accountability crib at DDPY's place or DDP's place. And so, yeah, my heart goes out to them. And of course, Scott's family and friends and all the fans as well, because as we've been saying here, just what a legend. I mean, in GB, you talked about the impact he had. And here's the thing. I think a lot of people are like, oh, yeah, he had an impact on the business. But when you actually stop and break it down like you did, I mean, he didn't just have an impact. He had the impact.
He did.
Know? It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. But
it's crazy. And to your point, I think sometimes those who are not in the sport of pro wrestling or who are not fans of pro wrestling, they don't understand why when we lose wrestlers, it hits us different.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not just like, you know, oh, a cool actor died. No, this isn't that. We have it. And it's not even the same when other athletes die. This is someone who became a part of our lives that we watched, you know, every week, you know, for many, many years and made such a strong impression on us. And the thing about wrestling that I think is always so amazing is we always look for ourselves in the people that we identify with. And so, you know, the cool factor of Scott Hall is one of those things everyone aspired to be. Everybody wanted to be
It's like the
the cool,
Fonz. It's like the
right.
Fonz. Yeah.
You know, it's the coolest kid on campus, and everybody wanted to be that, and he was that. And he was that all the time. And so it's kind of a crazy thing. I want to ask you guys a question. What was your favorite Scott Hall match?
Mm.
There are lots to choose from.
Mama, I can't pick just one match. I mean, my most memorable of Scott Hall is just every time he'd come out and pick up the microphone and be like, "Hey, yo." I mean, there was a time I lost every contact I had in my phone, and I couldn't think of a way to tell everybody I lost them. So I posted his meme. It says, "Hey, yo." And I was like, "Hey, yo, I lost all my contacts." You know, and that's how I told everybody. And it was just weird. It was stupid. It was funny, but
yeah,
I say that so much, and not just because of him, but it just sounds so good when he says it. And to me, it'll always be something like that. That's always something that sticks out. And just every time he would just speak and throw his toothpick and just be this, you know, the bad guy who everybody loved to hate and hate to love. But I couldn't tell you a match that just stands out, because it's just his ring presence, no matter what he did, was Scott Hall, you know?
Yeah.
So, you know, and we've talked about this before, but you guys go back farther than I do as far as when you started watching. So I started watching right around the NWO era, 97 into 98 is like when I really started getting into watching professional wrestling. I just didn't really know about it before then, you know. I was like, none of my family ever watched it or anything. So once I discovered it, though, I was like, I'm in. And but it just happened to be that prime time of wrestling, those late 90s, where it was like the big attitude era, big boom, you know. And he was a huge part of that, as we mentioned. But so, you know, I've since obviously gone back and seen the ladder match with Michaels, you know, at WrestleMania, and some of those classic matches that he had with Bret Hart at Royal Rumble and stuff like that. But I'm going to go a different route and talk about one that I actually got to be at. Now, this was kind of years after he was, I don't want to say he was out of his prime at this point, but it wasn't the 90s and it wasn't his WCW days. But this is when TNA, this would have been maybe 04 into 05. And so I was living in Orlando going to Full Sail, which some wrestling fans might know. Full Sail is where they shoot NXT. I don't know if they still do. At least it's where
it's in the Performance Center now.
Okay.
But
well,
it's
that's
where they
it
used to for years.
Where NXT kind of started, and they started shooting it down there. But which, by the way, I'll go off on a quick tangent. I was so frustrated because I was graduated from Full Sail in 05, and like whenever it was 11 or 12, they started doing NXT there, and I was like, why wasn't it there when I was there? Because they used a lot of students to like help with the production and stuff. Anyways, I was so frustrated. It's like, oh man, I missed it by that much.
Just that much.
So, anyways, while I lived in Orlando, we would always go to the TNA shows, which taped at Universal, and not only that, but they'd have the pay-per-views there as well at the Impact Zone. And I think that was actually 04 was the year they started doing the monthly shows. So like Victory Road was maybe November of 04.
Right.
I think he showed up there. He ended up having a match, and I think it was so him and Nash and Jarrett formed the Kings of Wrestling for a brief time. And I want to say it was a 6-man, and I think it was against Jeff Hardy, AJ Styles, and the Macho Man. And Macho came in very briefly as well, even more briefly than Scott. Scott was there for a little while, but just being able to see that in person, you know, because we'd go to all those shows and getting, you know, it wasn't like a 5-star match or anything, but it was just a cool experience to be able to see that in person. And then the other thing that sticks out to me too, as far as getting to see him live, and this one isn't necessarily a match, but this was the show. Well, you will know it as the infamous Finger Poke of Doom night. It was the show, I believe, following the pay-per-view, the Starrcade, where Scott Hall used the cattle prod, tased Goldberg. Goldberg loses the title to Kevin Nash, and the streak is over. Now, make fun of me if you want, but at that particular time, I was a big old Goldberg fan. And so when that happened, I remember watching the pay-per-view, the Starrcade pay-per-view, and being like, Scott Hall, you know good so-and-so, I can't believe you. Oh, of all the ways to beat Goldberg, like, really? This is what we're doing?
Mhm.
I was so mad. But anyway, so then they come to the Georgia Dome like the week later or 2 weeks later, whenever it was, and Goldberg was supposed to get his rematch. And of course, we all know how that went. It ended up in the finger poke of doom night. But but Scott Hall was there, and so I got to see him in person there as well. But I just always remember being like, Scott Hall, oh
Yeah.
man,
You no good, dirty rat.
yeah, exactly. But man, it's just crazy how many moments this guy had in the business. And back to what I was saying too about the different phases of his career. So even after his in-ring career, you know, of course, going through his personal issues that he went through, but then getting hooked up with Diamond Dallas Page and
Mhm.
being part of the resurrection of Jake the Snake.
Oh
And
yeah.
Mhm.
think about the countless number of people he helped just by being a part of that, people that saw his story and how inspiring that was for him
Yeah.
and Jake both to come from where they were
Mhm.
back to back to prominence. And like it's just crazy. That's a whole nother phase, you know, after his in-ring career. That
Mhm.
it's just unbelievable, man. What an incredible guy.
Yeah. No, I agree. In terms of matches, I think back when he was winning the Intercontinental Championship, he did it 4 times. The
Yeah.
fourth time where there was this title unification because there was this argument over who's the real Intercontinental Champion. Jeff Jarrett was running around with the belt, and then they had a whole tournament and Razor won, and so they had to have a unification match, and he was just so cool. And at that time, winning the Intercontinental Championship for a fourth time, nobody had done that. And
Mhm.
so he was that guy to do that. And so watching him in that space was amazing. And then, of course, obviously the move to WCW was just crazy. And it's amazing to me because, you know, when we start thinking about greatest wrestlers ever, people in the Hall of Fame, we always measure it by world title wins and that type of thing. But he had such a presence that wherever he went, it mattered. And he shook up every place he went. You know, he
Mhm.
shook all of those places up. And so one of my funniest memories that I think about it is when WCW was over and the NWO came over to WWE at WrestleMania 18. That is the one that happened at the Sky Dome the second time around. And everybody remembers that for the Hogan Rock match, which was just insane. But also on that card, the irony of this, actually, as we're talking about it this week, that you have Scott Hall versus Stone Cold Steve Austin, and the way he would take those stunners, it was just, he would like bounce. And I
Yeah.
mean, it was just like, oh gosh, you know, it was incredible to watch. He was so much fun. And it was wild. And it's funny that you mentioned that, Brandon, about him being a part of the resurrection of Jake the Snake. I think what's so powerful about Scott Hall's story is, you know, in a lot of these spaces, if people have personal challenges, they end up getting the best of them. We
Mhm.
don't get the chance to see them overcome that too.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
we got to see that with Scott Hall. And the irony that Scott Hall was responsible for helping to train Diamond Dallas Page, and Diamond Dallas Page returns the favor by ultimately extending his life, is just one of the most incredible things. And when I look at that, I'm just like, it's amazing. I think one of the other things Scott Hall showed us in wrestling is that you actually can have friends.
Yeah.
What they did with the Click is something that stood the test of time. I
Yeah.
mean, at one point you had, as they called it, Click North in WWE and Click South being DX and the NWO, basically running all of wrestling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to see them really be friends all the way until now, that's special in an industry that's not necessarily known for genuine friendships, which is,
Right.
we talk about this all the time. What we have in the three of us and the authenticity of that is not a common thing.
Right.
But I think we can look back to people like Scott Hall and the Click and see that that level of authenticity actually can exist in the wrestling business, where we all look out for each other, where we all want to see each other win, both in and out of the ring. And I think he showed us that. And so, us getting to watch him win all the way around was just something so special and irreplaceable.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's another cool thing too is, again, because I didn't start watching until like the late 90s, and I know there was so much that he did prior to that.
Yeah.
And so this week, especially, and I know moving forward, you see all these stories come out, but you also see all these posts of all these old things that he was a part of, or, great matches that he had. Or like I said, I'm finding clips from back in his AWA days where he's being interviewed. And it's like, oh my gosh, it's crazy to even think that that's the same guy.
Right.
Because he wasn't even talking with the Razor accent, he was just talking in a normal Southern voice or whatever. Like, what?
Yeah.
But then shout out, I mentioned Pat earlier, another shout out to Pat here. I believe it was his post that I saw this on. There was a Jerry Springer episode
Yeah.
where I had no idea this even existed. And this must have been prior to Jerry Springer becoming the trash TV show that it became, because it had these two sick kids that were on there. And they brought out Razor Ramon because one of the kids' favorite wrestlers was Razor Ramon, and he ended up giving him tickets to WrestleMania and letting him have his Intercontinental title belt. And it was just such a cool segment. And I'm like, one thing, I'm like, wait, this is Jerry Springer? Because I don't remember Jerry Springer before it became like the fighting and the craziness. Yeah. So that struck me as odd, but then also it's just so cool that Scott would go on there and do what he did. It's funny too, because he's in full gear. Like he's wearing his his trunks, his vest, the chains. Oh, it's awesome. So if you haven't seen it,
was wet and greasy looking.
if you haven't seen it, it's all over social media the last week or so. But I saw it a few different posts about it. But just stuff like that, man. There's so many cool things that I've seen that if I wasn't already a fan, like I'm even more so a fan now, because I'm seeing all this new stuff, or new to me at least, that I hadn't seen before. So that, combined with, like I said, some of the folks that we know that know him best that are posting some of their great stories and funny memories. And it's just such a, you always hate the circumstance that brought us here to hear all these kind of stories. But at the same time, it does kind of make you happy and makes you smile to know what an impact he had, not just on the wrestling world, but on the people that he was friends with and close with, and had all these special memories and funny memories with. And that makes my heart happy, because it has been kind of a sad week, but to be able to see all these fun stories has, brought a smile to a lot of people's
That's how
faces.
he lives forever, man. That's how he lives forever.
Right. And to that end, whenever we go through these spaces, it always makes me think that most of us don't ever know that history is being made while history is being made.
Right.
We're just living and we're just on to the next. And, but it does give me a reason to think of our need to stop and smell the roses and to celebrate each other on a more regular basis. I don't know. Unfortunately, I wasn't close enough to Scott Hall to know whether or not he felt this kind of love from people and that he knew that he had this kind of impact. But my hope is that we allow the people in our world to know what we think about them, to know the impact that they have. Because, this scenario in our mind wasn't supposed to play out like this. Like, this was him going in for hip surgery, right? So he comes out, gets a good hip, on to the next thing. And, we just don't know how life changes things for us. And so I think it now becomes incumbent upon all of us to ensure that the people in our world know their value to us, so that they never have to question that. And so, we find reasons to celebrate people because it's important.
It is. And you never know what somebody's going through when they don't feel maybe that they have people they can lean on, or have people that actually love them, because you wait till they're gone to miss them.
Right.
And it's
Right.
so important to just express, your love and your support and your caring and your shoulder,
Yeah.
even when they may not need it at the time. I mean, for anybody
Sure.
to know that it's there
Mhm.
and that they like us. I mean, we talk all the time, and I'll tell
Yeah.
you got brothers. I'm going to cry.
Yes.
But it's important.
Yeah. It's extremely important. I've just, when you really understand that, every day isn't promised, and that, you might think somebody doesn't need it, but to
Mhm.
your point, Diana, sometimes we can pull on those things when we don't, it's almost like having a savings account, right? Like, I
Right,
don't need to spend this right now, but
right.
if I need to, I can go to it and grab it. And I think we have to do a good job of filling people's emotional bank account by letting them know that we love them, that they have value to us, and we don't have to wait for their birthday to do it.
Don't have to
Make
wait till
it
their weekend. Don't have to wait
right.
till something tragic happens.
Make it awkward. Make it a
Yeah,
regular
weird.
part of life, And it's a shame that celebrations and appreciations are considered awkward. I know there are some people who are just like, I don't have time to think about the past, on to the future, blah, blah, blah. And there's space for that. But the
Right, right.
problem is, if we're always pointed toward the future, we miss the present. We don't enjoy it. And then the present quickly becomes the past, and we find
Mhm.
ourselves always living in regret.
Right.
So, it's tough when we lose people, but if you have let them know how valuable they are, then that's a level of regret you don't have to live with.
Exactly. And make it genuine. Don't make it just
Oh, God, yes.
cliche.
Please.
Oh, I love you, man. And make it
Yes.
genuine.
Save that foolishness. Like, give it
Yeah.
to me
Don't
real
just
and
say it,
only real.
or
Absolutely.
don't give it to me at all. Exactly.
Right. Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. Couldn't have said it better, you guys. And and like you said, GB and Diana too. That's what I love about our little trio here. I mean,
Mhm.
it's the real deal. And I feel like
Mhm.
you talked about, make it real, don't just
Mhm.
say things. I feel like
Yeah.
it comes across. I feel like people could tell. Like
Yes.
we
Mhm.
genuinely love each
Yeah.
other. We talk all the
Yeah.
time,
Yeah.
and that's what it's all about. Just let people know, because you never know. You just never know. And it's been a rough week, man. But you know what?
Yeah.
It's you said it before. Like, he'll live forever through everybody's memories
Mhm.
and stories. And
Yeah.
but it's just been it's been one of those weeks in pro wrestling. And I'm glad we were able to come on here and talk about him and
Yeah.
pay tribute and
Mhm.
honor
Right.
the
And those of you
legendary.
guys who are watching, if you have a little story you want to put in the comments, please feel free
Yeah.
to share.
Absolutely,
Absolutely.
absolutely, share and post your pictures, because I know a lot of you guys that we're talking to that listen to the show. Y'all probably met him that night that I'm talking about at SHW.
Right.
You probably went over and got a picture with him as well. Let me know, did he also do the tippy toe trick to you guys, or was it just me?
How
Um,
funny is that? Now every time we take a picture,
Right. We're gonna be.
He's gonna be on his tippy toes and be like,
oh yeah,
"Oh,
oh yeah.
he's
You
grown
know,
like
Brandon's
5."
a giant.
one other funny thing was, and I'll give Adam a shout out too. So Adam used to do commentary back in the day as well, before GB and Diana came in. So this was even before he was doing commentary. So at the time, I was doing it with DC, who a lot of
Mhm.
people in
Right.
SHW know DC, who's still
Not it.
recovering from his car wreck, by the way. So much love
Yeah.
and shout
Whew.
out to him. Uh,
Sheesh.
and but anyways, shout out DC. At that time, Adam and our other buddies, Alfred and Adrian, would sit front row at the shows. So they got a front row view of Sunny Day's head cracking the table and a
Right.
big old puddle of blood. And so if you remember, Sunny's ring gear, like the sleeves are kind of all shredded up, right? Like
Mhm.
Yep.
strips of cloth or whatever it is, the sleeves of the shirt or jacket. So those had gotten covered in blood and were just soaked, and there's a big pool of blood. Sorry to gross you out. But anyways, Adam is not, and I think I could say this without embarrassing him too much, but shout out to Adam. He gets a little queasy, right, at the sight of a lot of blood. And so his visual was all of those gross pieces of cloth covered in blood. He thought it was like insides coming out of Sonny's arm. Like he thought his arm was like shredded up, which I could see at like a
Bless
quick
his
glance.
heart.
So he turned pale as a ghost, right? And immediately sat back down and was like, whoa, like I'm about to throw up. I'm about to pass out. And so that happened. And then they see Scott Hall and they're like, oh, we got to go to get a picture. So I will always laugh when I see the picture of Scott Hall with Adrian and Adam, because Adam in the picture is pale as a ghost. Like he is, so, because all the he got so sick because of the blood. It was just so funny. So in that picture,
Wow.
they're excited to see Scott Hall, but Adam is also very, very pale in
He's
the
so
picture.
sick to his stomach. That is so
So,
funny.
anyways, anytime I see that, that's what makes me think of. I
Crazy.
also want to shout out my buddy Tom, who lives up in Chicago, who I met going to Full Sail, and we became fast friends because he was a wrestling fan. We'd go to the TNA shows together. But from the day I met him, even before I knew he was a wrestling fan, he came up to me and said, "Hey, yo."
Hey,
And that
yo.
was his thing. He'd always say, "Hey, yo," and right away I was like, "You must be a Scott Hall fan." Well, he was like one of the biggest Scott Hall fans. And so, of
Wow.
course, I've been thinking about him a lot this week, and we've texted
Yeah.
back and forth a couple times. But anyways, it's just so many people that were either connected or affected because they were a fan, and
Definitely affected.
just an amazing person that made an impact not only on the wrestling world as a whole, but just on the world as a whole.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so he will be truly sorely missed. And I'm glad we were able to come on here and, be able to pay tribute here. Because I know this isn't your typical SHW podcast that we.
But we're all fans. We're all real fans. Not
absolutely.
just personalities at SHW and other places. We're fans first, and I'm telling you, wrestling, that's special. And I'm not gonna say much more because I will start crying. And I don't want to sit here and be a crybaby, but I am very emotional when it comes to wrestling because it is passionate.
If you start crying, I'm gonna start crying, and then GB's gonna be like, "You guys."
Yeah.
I'm such a crybaby when it comes to something that's close to my heart, and it's been God, my whole life is just. And then anyway, go ahead, keep moving. Oh,
well, I was gonna say part of what made the week tough was right before we got the news of Scott Hall, we got the news of Big E.
Yeah.
Who I know we don't talk a lot about WWE, but it happened on national television.
right.
Had a bad fall with an overhead suplex that happened, and he landed, on his head, and resulted in a broken neck. Thankfully, no surgery is needed. But this is an interesting thing as I tie it and loop it to SHW, because just a couple of months ago, we saw what happened with Kevin Ryan in the ring.
Yeah.
And it is a reminder to fans that this is very much still a sport. And that things happen. It is a physical sport. It's often said it's not ballet. Some things, nobody plans to injure themselves, obviously. And so, it just reminds us that the people who are in-ring performers, the people who are working in this business are real people. As much as, we may appear at times to be superheroes, they have flesh and blood like you do. Their bones break, things happen. And so it just became a domino effect this week. And so shout out to Big E, and we wish him a speedy recovery. But the news of Big E coupled with the news of Scott Hall, it's a lot.
It was a 1-2
It's
punch.
A lot. It's a lot, man.
Yeah.
And they're both great guys who people love in this business. And so you just hate to see either of those kinds of things happen. So
Yeah, absolutely. And I hope Big E recovers sooner rather than later. Same with Kevin Ryan. Hopefully his recovery is going well and he'll be back before too long. But man, I tell you what, it's just been one of those weeks. I'm glad we have each other. I'm glad the wrestling world has each other to come together. And despite
can
what
I
you
throw
might
an
see,
upper?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
So here's an upper. The upper is, and I know here's the upper. This week is also 316 Day. And we heard that Stone Cold is actually going to be like at WrestleMania, seemingly in the ring.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, Do you think this is going to actually turn into a match?
So,
Or do you think this is just going to be the interview segment where we get a good stunner and that's it?
since you brought it up,
Mm-hmm.
let's talk about it. So
Let's.
if I'm armchair booking,
Mm-hmm.
if I'm going to see Stone Cold come back,
Mm-hmm.
I want to see a big, nice build to a match that means something and seems important. So
Okay.
where, if you recall when WrestleMania was here, which was 27,
Yes.
The Rock was a guest host or whatever. He came out of the end. And let's be honest, I was not a fan of the main event being The Miz and John Cena. When we finally
I
get a
don't know who
WrestleMania
was.
in Atlanta, and I'm
Right.
like, oh, we're finally getting WrestleMania. Oh, that's the main event. Well, The Rock came out of the end and rock bottomed everybody and kind of made everybody
Mm-hmm.
go home happy. But that was the beginning of a 1-year build to a match
Sure.
at the following year's WrestleMania. Granted, I was a little
Mm-hmm.
bitter because it was going to be the next year's WrestleMania where that match would happen
Right.
between The
Right.
Rock and Cena. So my point is, if this somehow or another turns into the spark that starts a feud between Austin and Kevin Owens, and it builds maybe to next year's WrestleMania, and by that point they've had a year to build it and make it meaningful, and it's going to be his final match ever, his big comeback, then I'm okay with that.
Okay.
Otherwise, if
So
it's,
you don't think there's going to be a match?
so I'm just saying I don't want there to be a match at this WrestleMania.
Oh, you want it to build?
I want it to build to a big important match. Like if what happens in a couple weeks, when it's like 2 weeks from now, right?
3 weeks from now, yeah.
3 weeks. So
Mhm.
I want it at this point. I'd be happy if he comes out, he talks his trash, boom, stunner, beer bash.
I'm sorry, 2 weeks, my bad.
Oh yeah, 2 weeks. So yeah, beer bash. Then he picks him up, gives him a beer, toasts him, boom, another stunner, more beer bash. Like classic Stone Cold from when he was like in his general manager days, back when he was riding the 4-wheeler. Like
Mhm.
Right.
that would be fine with me. But I don't want them to just spur of the moment, have an impromptu match, where they have a referee and they ring the bell and it's an actual match. And you know what I mean? Like I
don't want it
that's
to
me.
be like 10 seconds long or something like that. I want it to be, worth the build or whatever. But didn't Stone Cold accept?
Well, so his promo where it was him out on the dirt road, he
Yeah.
says whether it's so it's the KO show. Technically, it's like
Mhm.
KO's going to have the KO show, and
Right.
Stone Cold will come on as his guest for an interview, which would
Mm.
just be stunner beer bash. But
Basically.
but Stone Cold said, whether we call it a match, whether we call it a fight, whatever you want to call it, I'm gonna open up my final can of whoop ass, I believe is something to that effect.
Mhm.
And so technically there's not an official match, but my hope is that they don't just make it a match and then they have like a little cheapo match that's, I don't know. I don't want his comeback match, if he ever has a comeback match, to just be one little quick thing. Like if
Yeah.
but again, I'm just speaking from as a fan perspective. That's
No,
fine.
I agree. I mean, I can't stand it when they just squash match. I can't stand it.
What
I'm
do you
so pissed off about Becky and Bianca. I
right?
love that, but that ticked me off to no end. That was
Yeah.
ridiculous. I
Absolutely.
don't want to see that. I don't want to see any kind of squash match. I want it to be a fight.
Yeah. GB, what do you think is going to happen?
Well, in my mind,
Or
I think a
what do
few
you
things.
want to happen?
Well, what I want and what I think are actually similar here.
Okay.
And my thought process is this. And you guys know how my mind is, right? So I'm it's bad. So I think what's going to happen, because this is slated to happen on WrestleMania Saturday.
Okay.
It is a 2-day WrestleMania where they are filling up one of the largest stadiums in the
Mhm.
country, 100,000 people for 2 consecutive nights. My thought is, as big as Roman and Brock will be for night 2, I believe you don't want to just have Stone Cold at Mania for one night. So I think what happens is the interview segment ultimately leads to a match which happens the next night at WrestleMania Sunday, which now gets us to tune in both nights with much more expectation. I mean, the idea of seeing Stone Cold 2 nights instead of one, where one night you get the full interview, the next night you get a match, sounds intriguing. I don't know what ends up being on the line, if anything, maybe the rights to using the stunner. And if Stone Cold wins, Kevin Owens can't use the stunner again. I don't know.
He's got merch and everything. I mean, he's already taken the stunner.
Yeah, he's taken it. So the
Yeah.
idea of taking that back from him would, could be a thing. I just think from a business perspective, they're going to have to figure out how to leverage having Stone Cold at Mania for 2 nights to fill up that stadium both nights. Having lost Big E as a potential draw and some other folks as a potential draw, they've got to make this big. So in my mind, and I love the idea about the 1-year piece. The only thing that gets so weird about that is with Stone Cold being his age, and I'm not saying he's old, but a year out obviously gives him great time to train, but there's so many variables that happen within a year that I don't know if that's a thing. Plus, I also think with Mania next year being in LA, that'll be the Rock's Mania. So with that said, in Texas,
The Rock's the one that beat him in his final match. Maybe there's some sort of interaction. Oh, man, so many things.
But I think we'll have Rock and Roman in LA, which I think that's the match that people want to see right now. So in my mind, I think Austin ends up in a match, but the match ends up happening Sunday, which gives people another reason to watch both days. That's my thought.
I do also think.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Just to add to that, how drawn out it could be. You remember how Cena was calling Undertaker over and over, week after week, and it was just getting like, come on, dude. Either he's going to show or he's not going to show. How many times are you going to call him out? How long is this going to go on?
Right.
You don't want to do something like that with Kevin Owens and just begging Stone Cold for something, to come. I just, unless he's just going to beer bash him every time with the beer truck and drag him behind the 4-wheeler or something. I mean, something weird, like,
here's
whatever.
the other thing.
It could be anything, but
I think Kevin Owens.
Do in a year?
I think Owens beats Austin down night 1. I think he beats him down, which is what makes Austin have a match night 2. Because you're not going to bring me to
Disrespect
WrestleMania.
the legend kind of thing.
Right. Yeah. So this then ends up not being the full squash idea, but it is the idea of, oh, okay, you just beat up Austin in Texas at Mania. Oh yeah, we're gonna have a match.
The other thing I was thinking too was that of all the old timers, I hesitate calling Stone Cold an old timer, but let's be honest. I mean, he's been retired since, when was his last match?
2003.
Right?
I just want the whole world to notice that Brandon called Steve Austin an old timer.
He's been retired.
Only Brandon. That was said on the SHW podcast, but only Brandon said that.
Only.
Well, he has been retired for 20 years almost. So
you don't have to be old to be retired.
Anyways, I'm just saying, like, he is one of the few that just, when he said he was done, he was done. You know what I mean? He's been done. He hasn't come back for a Saudi Arabia show for a big payday. He's been done. And I think that he is also smart enough to not want to taint his career by coming back and having some sort of an embarrassing attempt at a match. So I would hope that if it is a match, that it is something that's worth, because I think he's the type that if he's going to do it, he's going to make sure it's good. You know?
Right.
So that's my hope, is that if they do have a match this week or a couple weekends, that it's actually good.
Yeah. I mean, he was wearing 2 knee braces when he was done, so. But he's had time to rest.
Sorry, Stone Cold. Don't come after me.
Again, he's gonna whoop your
Brandon called
come on,
him.
Man. Stop saying my name. Come on, man.
I didn't.
Brandon
Benefield.
Oh. No last names. No last names. Come on, man.
That's so funny.
Anyways, as opposed to any other Brandon that's on the show. I'm glad you specified.
One and only. To be found at SHW.
Right. Oh, goodness gracious. Well, hey, this week, despite the sad news, we did have, it was Austin 316 Day. We did have St. Patrick's Day yesterday, which reminds me, before we go, I do want to do a quick plug and a quick reminder that as you're watching this on Friday evening, tomorrow, from 12:30 to 3:30. I will be at O'Reilly's Public House in Sandy Springs, and we will be doing St. Baldrick's. I'll be shaving my, not that O'Reilly's,
Yeah.
different O'Reilly's.
It just
Jim Ross
popped in
did
my
that on-
head. I mean, I know.
Jim
I know.
Ross did it on commentary last week. It was hilarious.
About Kyle O'Reilly, and I was like, "Oh, Jim,
Yes.
oh, Jim."
it was
Anyways,
great.
It was. But we'll be there for St. Baldrick's. We're raising money for childhood cancer research, shaving our heads again. If you know me at all, you know I've been doing this since 2008, every single year since then. So you know what it's all about. If not, check out my social media. I've been posting
Dude,
all
I
about it.
noticed in some of your older videos that y'all were actually shaving shapes and stuff into your heads.
So
So
during,
I'm going to make a request because
Okay.
shamrocks are my thing, and I really want to see it. If you can get somebody to shave a cool shamrock, or even shave all your hair and just leave your hair as a shamrock in the side of your head, just for a picture,
Yeah.
just for the picture, I would be like, yeah, man.
Well, you know what? If I get him to do it, I'll be doing a Facebook Live, because as we talked about last week, I think I'll be going live on the SHW podcast Facebook
Do it.
page. So I don't know exactly what time I'll be getting my head shaved, because I will be co-emceeing this with my buddy Sully, and so we might not go until the very end. I don't know. We might go after everybody else goes, but
Yeah.
we'll see. But I'll definitely be doing it on Facebook Live. Y'all might have to text me and remind me, because I'll be caught up in the action. I don't want to
Sure.
forget. I don't want to forget.
Right.
I'm going to send you pictures of people who've done it before. That way you would not forget.
All right. So
I want to see it. That is the coolest thing.
yeah, so it's going to be fun. It's always a blast. And this place is great, too. They got great food, great drinks. It's a family-friendly event. So if you're looking for something fun to do tomorrow from 12:30 to 3:30, it's in Sandy Springs, O'Reilly's Public House, and it's the St. Baldrick's Foundation. Go to my social media. I've got the links in case you're interested and you want to know more about the the organization, or if you want to donate, or if you want to join us and shave your head and raise some money, then just get a hold of me and we'll make it happen. But I just want to put that out there. So that's tomorrow. And
Shave your head, shave your legs. Would it matter?
I'm not going to shave my legs. I will shave my head.
You might even raise more if you shave your legs.
That's true. I've had
But you
people
have
try to
wear
get me.
the shorty shorts to show.
Well, that's where the hang up is right there. It's the short shorts that I have had people try to get me to do an eyebrow or two before, but
Oh, don't do it.
Yeah.
so
Don't do
the rule, and I guess it's for legal reasons, St. Baldrick's won't allow straight razors. So they just,
it. Right.
Oh, yeah.
Just
So,
buzz.
I'm like, nope, sorry, I can't do the
You can
eyebrows.
clean it
sorry.
up later.
So anyways, it'll be a blast. I hope you guys can join us. And if not, check us out on the Facebook Live feed, as I will be streaming the head shaving tomorrow. But
That's on Saturday. I will be in the middle of Super Saturday in Dublin, Georgia, which is
oh,
the day for our St. Patrick's celebration. And I have to get ready for a concert that night and do a load of equipment and blah, blah, blah. But I'm going to do my best to tune in and watch you get your head shaved.
Yeah. Gotta
oh.
watch.
And on top of that, we've got April 8th is not too far away, which is SHW 38. And of course, this week we had a couple of match announcements, and we will sure have some more in the next week or so leading up to it. And I'm sure next week we'll probably be doing some previewing of that show.
Yes.
There's a lot to talk about coming off the last show, and a lot to talk about going into the next show. So excited to see the title match. I feel bad for Owen Knight having to take on the Destroyer, but
I have confidence.
yeah, he
Our
is the number
champion
one
is a
contender.
champion for a reason. He is kicking butt. He's taking names. I have confidence. He just got to figure out how to climb that mountain and crumble it to the ground.
And Cyrus is literally a mountain of a
Mountain.
man. Oh, it's crazy.
Literally.
Like just the other day, I was going back and watching the. I think I'd put it on TikTok or one of the Instagram reels of that time he did the moonsault from the top onto Huckabee. Shook the whole building.
Yeah.
Anyways, guy's nuts. The guy is crazy. But hey, I appreciate all you guys tuning in. And before we go, do you guys have anything else to tell the amazing people?
Hey, yo.
Yeah. Hey, yo, do me a favor. Go to SHW, go to prowrestlingtees.com/SHW pod. And there are 3 amazing shirts there that you could purchase from us. So you can go ahead and check it out. And survey says another win for the good guys.
Yes.
There you go. Well, we'll see you guys next week right back here on the SHW podcast. But until then, this has been
SHW.
This is our wrestling.
Oh, too sweet.